Yo, this is Matt Black of Coldcut and Ninja Tunes. You're listening to the Liverpool Connection Podcast, music and football episodes. Peace.
Hi everyone, welcome to the Liverpool Connection Podcast. I'm your host Daz. This is my football and music episode where I usually bring on a musician, DJ or producer to chat about football and music. But seeing as like it's my podcast, I can do whatever I want. So usually I bring on a musician who is a massive part of my musical landscape. And this fella that I've got on today, I'm a massive fan and I can't wait to geek out on asking him questions. I've got Matt Black from Coldcut and Ninja Tunes on today to just chit chat about his roots, his musical roots and influences and a bit more. Matt, welcome to the podcast, mate.
Thank you, Daz. Good to be here. So I'm not all that good on football, so we should steer away from that. Side of it,
to music.
Do have some other interests as well. So yeah, go ahead, man. It's good to be here.
I want to talk about let's go back to like little Matt. Were you influenced by music from your mum and dad in your house? Like what were they playing and were you influenced by it?
Certainly, yeah. My mum and dad, they're neither of them are musicians, although my dad used to whistle. And I remember my mum encouraging me and saying, "Oh, you can improvise whistling just like Dad." So that was a bit of encouragement. We used to sing quite a lot, sort of family songs, which were sort of from Mum and Dad's record collection. But they didn't used to play the records all that much. We just used to learn these songs. One of them was "Autumn Leaves," which we did a version of years later. And Dad was at art school with these guys, the Temperance Seven, who were sort of, bunch of 60s hipsters, white guys at art school who fell in love with black music, quite similar to John's and my route, actually. So I liked them a lot. They were sort of doing kind of revival New Orleans jazz. And as George Martin produced their first, their album, actually, which was quite a big hit, still sounds really good. So that was a big influence. And that songs like That Certain Party or Vodeo Dio Blues and Down in Savannah, Hard-Hearted Hannah, that one, yeah. So, and then, yeah, that was quite a lot of music around in my parents' home growing up, and it was, yeah, a big influence.
For you musically, did you pick up an instrument, in high school, or how did that work out?
No, so my sister went and had piano lessons, and she got up to grade 8. And I don't know if I was offered them by my mum and dad or not, but I think I thought it looked a bit too much like hard work, and so I got more interested in gadgets, and I got this old kind of reel-to-reel dictaphone that my uncle gave me. And I used to sort of mess around with radios, and I found that if you got like a motor and switched it on and off, a battery-powered motor, you could get the sound to come out on the radio. So you could sort of turn it into a sort of wireless synth. And I started wiring up bits of electrics like that, and I had a couple of really good robots that kind of moved around and flashed lights and made sounds. And I used to charge my mum and dad like 1 penny to come in to see the show. And my mum said, "Oh, it's a sound and light show, Matthew. Good." So I think that with that encouragement, I'm still sort of doing the same thing 50 years later,
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy because, I'm a big like Aphex Twin fan as well. And, kind of what he does, I've noticed, any interviews where he'll dissect a synthesizer and kind of wire it to the way he wants it to sound. So it's kind of like a mad scientist. And you and Jonathan are like mad scientists to me. you know, how you put stuff together?
I'm quite into the mad scientist description. Well, about the nicest thing that ever been said about me in an interview was in The Guardian. They said I'd have made a very good, if slightly scary, Doctor Who. So to me, that's the ultimate compliment. It's definitely a bit of a hero. I'm maybe not very good at some mad scientist actually, but I try. Actually, I'm in a couple of weeks' time. I'm going to meet up with my school buddy Aidan Sutcliffe. And we were a sort of geeky little posse at school. We had our own disco that we started running. And then him and I decided to build a synthesizer each in the 70s. This was out of a kit in practical electronics. It was called the Mini Sonic. But Aidan rather cleverly worked out that he could take the design and modify it and insert a patch bay into it, because this one didn't have a patch bay. And he worked out that if you had a patch bay, you could do a lot more interesting stuff. And so I kind of copied him, and we did used to work together, and I got the idea that, you could modify stuff, right? It wasn't just about taking what you were given. You could modify it and evolve stuff. So I think that attitude was quite useful going forward. But on the Mad Scientist, I couldn't get my synthesizer to work, and it took Aidan quite a while to work out that I'd soldered all the transistors in the wrong way round. So... So Mad Scientist, a bit too mad sometimes.
Live and learn, right? Live and learn.
Yeah.
Where did you meet Jonathan? Because it's always great to hear, like, a lot of people will be like, I met him in a club, a coffee shop, where did you first meet Jonathan?
It's where hipsters used to hang out. It's record shops.
Stroke their beard.
Yeah, there's, that if you're a music head, then you were in record shops, right? And they were a social hub as well, and you'd meet other heads there who were well into it as well. And it's funny, I nearly met Jonathan indirectly through the sister of one of my best mates, Mary James. She was working in a shop called Strange Ways in Covent Garden, and I was trying to sell her some mixtapes of mine. But she said she'd already got these really good mixtapes by this guy, Jonathan Moore. So I borrowed one off her, and I had to admit they were pretty good. So I was aware of John a few years before I met him, right? But eventually we met in Reckless Records in Berwick Street, and John was actually managing that. It was a fantastic secondhand record shop. As a punter, I was there, and I started talking to him, worked out that we were really both into go-go and black music and also hip hop and trying to do stuff with sound, and that we were into these records from New York called Lessons 1, 2 and 3 by Double D and Steinsky. We worked out, him and I were the only two guys in London crazy enough to have spent 45 quid on a DiscoNet version of DiscoNet recording of Lesson 3, which 45 quid in those days was, a lot of money for a 12, probably like 450 quid now. But once you got into the lessons and that art form and realized this was something else, had to have it. So we bonded on that. And then I had this idea that I wanted to make a mix in that style. And John said, well, come in and play to me where you've got to. And that was Say Kids, What Time Is It?
Well, because, I want to go back a little bit, like for the DJing. I always like to know what you first played on. Obviously Techniques is the number one. A lot of people have said, no, that's not their first table.
No, absolutely not. So go back to school. This is like 1974 with Aidan, my mate, and two other of my little posse. We saw these two rubbishy old decks and a speaker and an amplifier outside the third year tutor's office. So we said, what's this? And he said, the youth club are throwing it out. So we said, well, can we have it? He said, well, yours for 5 quid. So we bought the lot. And it was a homemade sort of DJ setup. Someone had made a wooden frame and stuck this. One was a Garrard SB25, which was a standard turntable. And another was some other rubbishy old turntable. And someone had wired them into a box and put in these volume knobs, but it didn't really work. So that we got into that and started using that as our first turntables. But records were so expensive, right, that for our first discos, we mainly relied on recording stuff off the radio. trying to pause it before the DJ started talking. And we also had this ferrograph, which was this big old reel-to-reel that the school was chucking out, and we got that and used to use that as a source as well. So yeah, a variety of sources provided my first turntable or DJ experience. Well, I didn't get my Technics till much later.
Yeah, it seems like, I remember in high school as well, there was always, somebody had a DJ set up from the staff, whether it was the old style where it had one turntable, the cassette deck, and then like an 8-track as well, that looked like a
music center.
Yeah, it was huge. We had one at my house as well, but back in high school and youths clubs always had those type of turntables. So everybody kind of got a go on them, and there was, I was kind of the same. I was drawn to it, just because I used to frequent the record shops on a Saturday, and then obviously go to the clubs, and then on Monday you go in because you're trying to tell the person what sounds you heard over the weekend, and that's. Like you said, record shops are a hub for, to be socialites. I've got many mates, that worked in record shops, and I've over the years still, stuck with them, best mates and everything.
It's like the taste in music, right? It's one of the strongest bonding things between people. Actually, I've heard if two people meet randomly, their taste in music be the strongest factor in working out if they'll get on with each other. Mm-hmm. So that tells you a lot, I think, about what music means to us, huh?
Well, I mean, I have an older sister that would pass down music to me, whether some was good, some was bad, but, you always share with your mates. But it's always great to have like-minded people, because you can take from them and they can take from you, something that you haven't heard before, and you're like, oh wow, this pretty cool, and then they get the same feedback from yourself.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, when I was at school, though, didn't have much money, and a 7-inch single was £1. That was my entire week's pocket money. So I remember shelling that out on Heatwave boogie nights when we were doing a disco at the town hall. And playing that record, I think 3 times in the course of the evening, because everyone was loving it. I wanted to get my money's worth. But it wasn't really until I got to college and started a band, and then, being older and having a bit more access to the culture and little bit more money, that I developed the kind of side of it that you're talking about, where my friends were all just really into music, and that was our main part of our shared culture, actually.
When did you and Jonathan start to go, not that it's more about, why I respect you and Jonathan so much. It's more about your art than it is about making loads of money. From the interviews that I've seen of you and Jonathan, you always come across like, cool cats, but also it's art first.
Yeah. What did we say? Fuck dance, let's art.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that we were just really driven by that passionate love of music, and particularly, black music. When I moved in with these mates at uni, and one of them, Dunk, had a really good record collection. And he sort of took me aside and he said that he'd been studying music for quite a while, and he'd come to the conclusion that black music was just better, basically, that was where it was at. That was the coolest music. And he started playing me stuff. And like I say, we had a little crew there, getting high, listening to Fela Kuti, Gil Scott-Heron, James Brown, a lot of reggae music. And I really got bitten by that bug. And I'd say, I think it's important to credit black music for where it comes from. It comes from black people and black culture. Of course, that can be mixed up a lot with all sorts of inputs. but I do think it's fair to use that phrase and to credit it. And I just think black music is the greatest thing ever. That's been my main sort of guide stone in my career. Last night, watched the Sly Lives, which is the new Sly and the Family Stone documentary by Questlove. Mm-hmm. Oh, man, it's just mind-blowing. You know, the sheer exuberance of that music, the sheer quality, exuberance, funkiness, and across the board, you know, talent and you know, realism, social realism. It was the right thing at the right time, and he was just so handsome and charismatic and skillful and talented and a nice guy. He's sort of jumped in at number one of my favorite black music heroes, actually, as a result of that documentary. I you know, obviously I knew him and the music, but this documentary really puts a lot of story and flesh on that, and it's highly recommend that. Unbelievable.
For me, I've kind of had the best of both worlds because, you know, obviously I'm from the UK. I've been over in the States now for 30 plus years. So I went to the deep south, right outside, 4 hours outside of Atlanta, Savannah, Georgia. So right. I know, you know, black music was very big for me because it's a feeling. It's just, it just gets you in your bones. And, you know, rap music for me was very huge because, you know, the Run DMCs of this world, fantastic. That you know, and I'm going to, you know, kind of segue into Eric B and Rakim, because Rakim had this voice that just took me someplace, and I'm very like into lyrics. You know, I love my beats, but if you give me some heartfelt lyrics that I can kind of relate to, and I know people might laugh, like, you know, what's this Scouser white kid talking about that he can relate to Rakim?
Well, I wouldn't laugh because I totally get it. And I was on that tip as well. It's just like some very, very powerful culture, actually. You know, artistically, it's, you know, you're tuned into every word when my man's on the mic. Do you know what I mean? He ain't no joke. You know, this is the real shit. Sometimes I think of, like, you know, youth at the back of the English class and the teachers getting them to try and fucking pay attention to Shakespeare and so on. Shakespeare's cool, but they're writing their lyric books. Actually, that is real living culture, and poetry right there deserves a lot more respect than it might get. You know, there should be an accommodation for that. So I totally feel you. I mean, it's interesting because I was just about to say, like, hip hop as a genre and as a culture was very attractive. And if you look back, especially at the old days of Ninja Tune, I think all the artists on the label would have agreed that hip hop was their main inspiration. Even if they were drum and bass or making techno or across the board stuff we had, you know, it was hip hop that was kind of crystallized a cultural route which was available, which we could get into. And there's the four pillars of hip hop, you know. There's the visuals with the graph. There's the dancing with the breaking and body popping. There's the MCing, and then there's the DJing and beat making as well. So that you got at least four routes into the culture where you might be able to get amongst it and be part of it and contribute to it. So I think that was very attractive.
Yeah, same for me. I mean, you know, Rakim is up there, Q-Tip for me, Del the Funky Homo Sapien, just hit it out the park for me. I mean, the beats were something that I've never heard before, but it was the lyrics, 100% the lyrics, and they just talk to me, you know. And again, it's just great that I had the best of both worlds, because I would take these tapes back home with me. And my mates would be like, "What is this shit?" Yeah. And I want more of it. And I was like, "Well, give me another year. You know, I'll be back home in a year with some more tapes." But it was great because, you know, they'd go searching out, and, you know, we'd talk on the phone, and they'd be like, "I'm trying to tell the record guy what this music is and how can he get it, you know. And yeah, we had many a fun conversation about like, look, I can send you some 12 inches, you know, it'll cost, because again, you know, back then 12 inches, well, I mean, they still are, they're pretty expensive, but yeah, it was just great going back and forth. And then my mates would send me more of like the indie stuff that was going.
So what sort of date is this then?
I'm talking like late 80s.
Yeah, well, this is the time as well. Actually, in the like early mid 80s, I had a girlfriend from New York called Adina, and she was like a hip hop chick, and she knew all the music, and she turned me on to some quite good stuff. I remember I wanted her to send me the new Soul Sonic Force record, but she didn't. She sent me the Art of Noise album with beatbox on, right? And she says, this is what's going on, or as we say in New York, the word, you know, this is like 1984, right? And, you know, that track Beatbox to Art of Noise was huge with the hip hop crew in New York, you know. And yeah, another, when you're talking about rap and you know, I like rap that sort of takes it to another level, and I think it's Rakim who signposted that first. You could call it spiritual or just like higher level of poetry. You know, there's a big gap between Know the Ledge and Rapper's Delight, isn't there? They're both rap, but it's quite a different dimension, right? But one that did it for me was Tila Rock and Jazzy J, It's Yours. Do you know that track?
I do, yeah.
Commentating, illustrating, description giving. So I don't really know, some musical rhythm can mess with the head. I don't know. If it's true, I leave it up to you. I mean, just fucking so raw, hip hop beat, just drum machine scratching and vocals. It's next level. And I encountered that track when I got persuaded to challenge the Wild Bunch's Nelly Hooper on the turntables on a visit to Bristol on holiday, right? And we checked them out. We coming from London, and we were really into hip hop, bunch of white guys, really into it. We came to Bristol, and there was all this graph around town, which was done by 3D, right? Rob. And then we went to hear the Wild Bunch play, and they were doing quick mixing and stuff. It's like, man, this is ahead of anything we've heard in London, you know. And then we were hanging out the dugout one night, and this guy comes up and says, so what are you guys doing here? And we're like, well, we like the music. And they're like, so do you do anything? And so my mates point to me and say, well, he scratches. So they persuaded me to challenge Nelly on the turntables, which, as he was really good, and actually as the two turntables were sort of mixer deck, which was not how I was used. And I didn't even have my SL 1200s then. Anyway, suffice to say, it was quite embarrassing for me. But I did learn a lot. And Nelly cutting up 2 copies of Tila Rock, It's Yours. I was like, right, I'm going to get these records, and I'm going to get myself some techniques, and I'm going to learn to do this properly. So I went back to London, and that's what I did.
And for you, you know, when you had the chance, you know, to remix Paid in Full, that must have been a sort, you know, surreal moment, because obviously you're a massive Eric B. and Rakim fan. So that coming across your desk, I mean,
chance to work with a major US hip hop artist. I mean, come on, you know, this was a real leg up, you know. So yeah, we were delighted.
Did you find it daunting though? Because obviously it's I mean, it's gold dust to me, like one of those gold dust tracks that you want to kind of go, ooh, yeah, should I be remixing something that just sounds so perfect? I mean, how did you and Jonathan like come about? You're just going to go, we're going to entirely reconstruct it? Or what was the thought process?
I think we had a certain healthy kind of fuck you attitude to it. You know, we'd already been making records as Coldcut, and we knew we could cut stuff up and layer it up and add another dimension of interest. The original Paid in Full track it's a dope track, but it's not the greatest track ever. It's not as great as, I Know You Got Soul, for instance. It's not as instant. But, full credit to Julian Palmer for 4th and Broadway in the UK office, not America, who liked that track and thought there was a potential single there. And I think we were actually not his first or second, but third choice to remix it. But he came to us, offered us 750 quid to do it. And no multi-track, just a couple of copies of the album, not even a 12-inch, and said, okay. And I think 1.5 days in the island studio, and said, get on with it. And so, this was, like I say, opportunity to work with major revered American from the source hip hop. And we were like, right, we'll fucking show them what we can do. And I remember messing with John, trying different sounds out, and him pulling out the Ofra Hazar record, which I believe Charlie Gillett turned him onto. Charlie was a legendary sort of world music fan, the world music DJ on Capital FM. I think he turned John onto that record, which was called Imnin Alu. And we stuck it on. It didn't sound quite right. I pushed it down to -8 on the decks, and it sort of suddenly came into tune with the bass line. We looked at each other thinking, I think we're onto a winner with this. So that was sort of became the most notorious sample of our career, and big part of the attraction. She ended up getting a third of the publishing on it as well, which was fair.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, that's her voice, so
indeed. It's the hook. It was the hook, that talk about Paid in Full. I think that sold 12 million worldwide or something. And I don't quote me, but it was a hit worldwide, that track.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, they everybody seemed to kind of take from Eric B and Rakim too with Mars, Pump Up the Volume. I know Soul, which was in the same year, I believe, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, that was, I think, Dave Durrell. Well, CJ McIntosh was a wicked scratch DJ, and then Dave Durrell was a sort of dude on the scene and contemporary of Jonathan's. Dave used to play at Raw, and remember we took down our third single, That Greedy Beat, on a dub plate when he was playing at Raw one evening, and he stuck it on. It sounded fucking immense. And then he had to play Rebel Without a Pause afterwards. That was the only thing which could sort of work after that. But it's a sort of, you get those speckles of gold dust, don't you, when you're collaging. And Eric B and Rakim, Pump Up the Volume was a classic bite.
Yeah, it was just a great year, I think, for music. And again, those two records for me stood out the most. But I think when you and Jonathan, like I said, you do this remix for somebody that you highly, think of. And then you get, I've heard it again, Eric B's kind of like, as you, I think, quoted, like girly disco music.
That's apparently what you said.
Yeah, and then you've got Rakim going, this is fucking brilliant, basically.
Yeah, it's quite understandable, isn't it? Because we were taking Rakim's vocals and putting them in a really nice mounting and presentation, but with Eric B's stuff, I guess he felt a bit threatened by us kind of doing our own scratching instead of his, and fucking with his beats, basically. But hey, in the end, everyone was happy.
Yeah, that's the main thing. And you brought him over for Top of the Pops. So, I mean, who doesn't want to be on Top of the Pops, right?
Well, I think probably they did not, actually, because it would have been like this. Record company in America goes, guys, you've got a hit in the UK. You've got to go over and do this show called Top of the Pops. It's immense. So like, oh, okay, whatever. So they get on the plane, come over here, and are stuck on Top of the Pops, miming to a track that they probably never heard, in the sort of cheesy Top of the Pop studio with some sort of very straight crowd of people there going, what the fuck? But the record company's told us we got to do it. So
Top of the Pops for you, because I mean, you've been on quite a few times, obviously with Lisa Stansfield and then with Yaz. When you're growing up, especially in the UK, your family, Thursday night, Top of the Pops was on, I'd maybe get a shandy when I was about 12 years old. So I look forward to Thursday nights, not so much for the music, because a lot of it was just, just weird shit. I mean, come on, number one, like Combi Harvester and all. It was novelty stuff, but for being on,
it was a sort of cheesily fascinating, wasn't it?
yeah, it was. You just get glued to it. Like, what is this crap? But I'm watching it and I'm enjoying it because it's just, I could throw away music. You don't really have to think too hard. The lyrics aren't, very good. But how was it? Because again, as a kid, you grow up and you kind of go, I want to be a footballer. I want to be on top of the pops. You got on top of the pops, but again,
it's like they say, never meet your heroes. It's a bit like that. But so top of the pops. When you watch it on the TV, right? There's this sort of gorgeous sign that really psychedelic with the wavy lettering and rainbow coloring. It says "Top of the Pops," and it just looks brilliant. When you get to the studio, you find that this is like some fucking battered old piece of polystyrene, right? Really looking a bit the worse for wear. But when you stick it up on the wall and shine the lights on it, and you can't really tell because definition of TV in those days was really shit. You'd never get away with it in the era of high def, right? Mm. But it kind of, munged it out so you couldn't see all the holes in it. And so it was a bit like that, really. Then you see also there's the, what looks like the enthusiastic crowd of people having a good time. So actually about 20 people who they kind of, sheep herd around with almost electric cattle prods to get them in the right place and make it look like a spectacle, which actually isn't. And that's before you get into realizing that, what's the euphemism? One title, full playback means you're going to mime, which, to be fair, is the way it is around most of Europe. And I think internationally, most TV appearances were like that.
Well, there's 3 stages, isn't there?
How do you mean? 3 stages? Yeah, I see.
Yeah, 3 different, like...
It means 3 stages of miming. The 3 stages, and they sort of shuffle you around from one to the other. I mean, let's be fair. We all enjoyed that program, and I've had some formative, top of the pops experiences. Hawkwind's doing Silver Machine being one of them. That definitely had an effect. They were quite wild for top of the pops, really, and a very psychedelic, futuristic, rocking sound as well coming out of your TV.
Well, I mean, I remember, the orb playing chess. That I thought that was brilliant. I mean, Express 2.
Quite friendly with Youth, actually. Youth and Alex. I was around at Youth the other day. We were doing a new album together based on some Guarani shamans from Brazil that a friend of ours brought over for a sort of anthropological exchange. So we did a studio session with them, and we've sort of collaged it up into a kind of quite orby, ambient stroke dance experimental session. So I hang out with Youth quite a lot.
Amazing producer. Absolutely.
He's just done so much. He does loads of stuff. He's writing his book. He does poetry. He's like paints. Like, I'm a bit like, okay, but yeah, he's a brother.
I love that though, because a few weeks ago I had Justin Robertson on, and again, he's just an artist. I mean, he's a painter, he's an author, producer, DJ. For you and Jonathan, I want to get into like more of the audio visual stuff that you were doing as well, because you look at what's going on in the scene now, and the pre-recorded bullshit set, set to the visuals. It's just a press play.
One title, full playback, you could almost say.
Yeah, it just does my head in. I just don't understand how you've done it yourself, like with the not the fake shit, but
I've tried all types of technique actually, but not a full playback show. No, but go on. What's your question?
Oh, I just want to know where you started coming up with the idea to incorporate that into your sets.
Live visuals. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I think John and I were never particularly happy being frontmen. you know. And when we had on top of the pops, you know, luckily we had Yaz and Trevor Shakes, the incredible dancer who's in the video as well, to help us out there. And then when we were DJing, we could sort of have some turntables to kind of hide behind. But then when it came to doing live shows, we didn't really want people staring at us. You know, early on, it's people conditioned by the rock paradigm. Yeah, you got some characters on stage. They're kind of charismatic. They're performing. It's a big deal. You have to like have a big ego and kind of whirl it around and impress people with that. We didn't really go for that, and so we came up with the idea of that we could have projected visuals to provide an extra visual interest to the show. But it wasn't just to give people, partly to give people something else to look at, but we also felt that that electronic visuals provided a natural adjunct and a natural support to electronic music. When I say electronic music, I include hip hop and sampling and, you know, the whole spectrum of styles. Electronic music is just a set of techniques, actually. So, and so I got an Amiga computer. I visited Selfridges in 1988 and I saw a demo called The Juggler, which is this 3D rendered character juggling balls on a checkered background, fully ray traced. I saw it, it's like, that means you can make a whole movie on your desktop. Right. So I bought an Amiga 2000 and started messing around. You could even sample video into it, then take it and start painting on top of it. You could do simple 3D modeling and animation. So I started synchronizing that to music. There was a lot to work with in terms of desktop video, even before you got to the Mac and then being able to do proper video editing. That was more till the mid-90s. But even at the beginning, I was just taken by the thought that, like, yeah, this is the next thing after acoustic musical hip hop is multimedia hip hop. Mm-hmm. So I really got bitten by that idea, and Mixmaster Morris introduced me to these two art students called Miles Visman and Rob Pepperell, and we formed what later became Hex with them as kind of a multimedia lab for Coldcut, and to produce content which we could use in our shows, and to make stuff that was more than just some records. So the live shows came out of that kind of idea bag.
Well, it lends to more creativity than just watching two guys behind a pair of decks. You know,
it's another dimension. I mean, John had been to art school as well, so he came at it with that kind of context as well. My dad was an artist, sculptor, painter, printmaker. I'm sitting here surrounded by some of his works and his prints and on the wall there. Can you see that?
Yeah, I can.
So, you know, I was lucky enough to grow up in a house with a lot of really nice artwork and aesthetic objects there. And so it was natural for John and me to work with visuals. And yeah, it was another aspect of creative technology. So again, not being actually a painter myself, or even a filmmaker or photographer, digital technology allowed you to sort of quite easily have a go at messing with that kind of creativity to make visuals, stills and moving visuals, and then putting that together with music. There's a real kind of aha, this really works. Mm-hmm. You know, sometimes you just think it makes a link, and you think, yeah, this is a rich area to work in. So that idea of applying the aesthetics, techniques, insights of audio hip hop to visuals has been very fruitful.
What's your DJ setup like when you and Jonathan play Obviously, you have the decks and everything. What else is on there?
No decks, not for me.
No?
I'm over them. If I say this, people think, oh, it's like he's lost it. Vinyl DJing is the only real thing. But no one can say nothing to me because I've been DJing for 50 fucking years, and I've used cassettes, reel-to-reel, crappy turntables, SL1200s, computers, iPads, vinyl, time-coded vinyl, DVDs, CDJs, the works, right? And now my DJing setup is 2 iPads, like the one that I'm talking to you on, 2 iPad Pros, and a Pioneer DJ mixer. And I can do more on my phone now using my own app, Jam, which is what Coldcut have developed as our own instrument. Check it out. It's free, available for Android and iOS. I can do 100 times more on that than I could on any turntable-based setup, right? So that excites me. So yeah, if I DJ now, I might use that, or I might use in concert with Algorithm DJ Pro, which is a fantastic software DJing program, which has numbers of incredible features like real-time warping, like Ableton Link built in, like integration with Tidal, so you can use a whole streaming library. Yes, I do requests sometimes. It's like, yes, I have got Boney M, Rasputin, because I got it on the cloud. But most importantly, it's got the neural isolator, which is real-time stem extraction. So 3 sliders, bass, middle, and treble. I've got drums, melodies, and vocals on 3 sliders on my iPad. Take any fucking track, instantly strip it down to the acapella and do a mashup of it. Unbelievable. I keep waiting for some kid to jump up and just sort of show what can be done in terms of a next stage of DJ creativity using this shit. But it hasn't happened yet. If it doesn't pull their finger out, I'm going to have to do it myself. I mean, I am doing it, but I'm getting a bit... Anyway, I'll do it. But come on, the challenge is there, guys. Get on that. Let's have the new style of DJing now. So I always said a disc jockey plays records, a DJ plays with records. So that creative potential, power, the whole history of recorded music right there on your device, plus real-time stem extraction, plus all this other shit. It's incredible. Let's have a bit of a next level jump, please.
Oh, I'd love to see that. You've heard of James and Beeler, right?
Not sure.
Okay, you might want to look him up. He does more, the dance stuff, but he uses his iPad, uses some samplers, uses just a shitload of technology that I'm still trying to figure out what the hell it is. But he just manipulates the sound and everything, and it's all live. So it's really cool to see. But yeah, I mean,
there are people talk about hybrid DJ sets now, which I think is quite a useful term.
Yeah, Carl Cox doing it.
Yeah. I don't know if we juiced quite enough what you were saying before about live sets. I've heard people say to me, when I discussed it with members of my crew, who should remain nameless, but well qualified peeps of mine have said, like, you really should just render the whole fucking thing out, because that gives people the best show with no mistakes, right? Just produce the show, press play, and stand on stage going rah rah, waving your hands, and because that gives people the most perfect show. But I've resisted that. I don't like it, and I don't accept that that's the best show. It depends how you define best. But to me, unless there's an element of risk taking, there's no rock and roll aspect to it. It might as well be, it takes it to a Muzak product level, So we've tried to come up with our own ways of finding a balance between, you can't take your whole studio with you, even though a lot of the time electronic music is a studio music, right? But taking a whole studio with you is not practical. Some people do that. They'll come along with their massive synths and everything, but a bit fucking unwieldy. Some people get a live band. That was the kind of Massive Attack solution to their studio produced music. Let's get a band of shit hot musicians in, learn the tracks, and give that in a context that people understand. The rock band, all good, but not something that I particularly wanted to do. I didn't feel it was in sync with where we were coming from. You can DJ your own records and maybe get a bit creative with that, but that's pretty limited as well. So we came up with our own instruments that would enable us to do a kind of remixed versions of our tracks live. And that's what Jam is. And I can structure a track out in there and play it pretty much as you'll hear it on the record, but I can also dive in and start really fucking with it and radically changing it and go on some excursions and take it somewhere else, change the BPM, bring in a whole different feel, drum loops, really glitch it out, mix it with something else. And then if I get lost or at some point I want to get back to the audience connection with the track, they know I can bring it back. So to me, it's about having a mixture of order and chaos, of pre-programmed structure and improvisation, and to occupy the middle ground with that in a sort of free expanse of fun.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think certain mistakes are good, because some mistakes sound better than what you first intended. I remember I actually went to a rave here in Austin, where I'm based out of now, and DJ Shadow played a rave, and it was he just found it very kind of bizarre that he would be booked to play at a rave at 2:00 in the morning. But it was great. I loved his intro. He just said, "I'm going to try and entertain you best I can." And here you go. And that was it. And he just fucking blew me away for an hour and a half. He had like ravers, like just going absolutely apeshit because he just sampled. I was, I'm not the biggest chain spotter, but that night I was just glued to him just, putting
a master at work.
Oh my God. He's just absolute class.
I rate Shadow as well. He's, I've seen him do like a 7-inch set as well, cutting and scratching, mixing it, flawless and damn impressive, far beyond my capabilities actually. But yeah, I like that, and I like, if you could relate it to hip hop as well. Here's another thing why one of the reasons I've developed Jam is I want to bring the DJ beat maker back into the live hip hop equation. It used to be, actually it started with the DJ called DJ Herc, Grandmaster Flash, producing entertainment out of real-time vinyl manipulation. The MCs came later, right? But then the MCs, because they fell into the rock star mode of what people were expecting, took that front position and sort of ran away with it. Grandmaster Melly Mel, I've never forgiven him for that, stealing Flash's name. But and now the DJ, if there is one, presses play on a backing track. If you're lucky, you'll have some turntables and probably be playing time-coded vinyl, not real vinyl off that. That's cool. And then just do a bit of scratching on top. But it's not doing really shit, right? There's no interplay with the MC. For me, that conversation was what was really exciting about it. The DJ would work the tracks, would chop it out, the MC would flow over the top and then do call and response, doing little scratches in between the MC's phrases. And, so with Jam, I've done a few sessions where I've done that, working with MCs, and I've got come across a few people using it in that way for live beat manipulation. And it's a hip hop instrument. That's one of the reasons for its conception. It's very responsive, instant response. No fucking wait till the next bar for something to happen. Bang, bang, bang. It's there. Your timing has to be good.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, you kind of get that in the UK with grime now, and drum and bass a little bit, but more so with the grime and the dubstep was starting with the MCing.
Well, right, but okay. So, to my question then, what is the beat maker doing in a grime situation? They're not doing anything live, really, are they? They're playing the beat. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas, why does grime need to be fixed like that? Why can't it be as dynamic as hip hop? Drum machine and scratching. I think there's a question worth asking there. I think this whole canon needs to be made a lot more wilder again. Mm-hmm. So relating it, it's a hop, but well, Questlove's on the Sly documentary, you know, loving on the drum breaks of Sly and the Family Stone. But the exuberance, the wildness of that era of music, and Sly's band in particular, it's like, mate, people are satisfied with awfully little when we could be having this, you know, please.
Well, I mean, the whole thing is with the music industry is you're spoon-fed stuff, and people eat it by, you know, by the bowl instead of, you know, searching stuff out. I mean, you know, America's got the EDM scene, and, you know, I hope, you know, in a year or two, that the people that are kind of into that will start to look for something a bit different, go to more underground clubs, you know, search something out than what's put in front of you. You know, you go to these festivals, you get 30 different DJs play for an hour, which I just think's a load of bollocks. An hour.
I'd rather have Mixmaster Morris all night, to be quite honest.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I went to an early Skrillex gig. He was booked for this thing that we did called Energy Union, where he got a big grant from the EU to make like a kind of psychedelic film about intelligent renewable energy. That was wicked. We booked Skrillex for this gig in Brighton, and it was fascinating seeing his crowd turn up, sort of gothy looking people, to basically electronic music night. And at the beginning, I thought that sound was fucking really exciting and heavy, and, you know, but then it gets turned into a commodity real quick. And it's like, okay, we can force feed this shit to the kids. I'd go further. I'd think, you know, the powers that be are quite happy with the state of music at the moment. It's been flattened out, flat earth, you know, culturally speaking. There's no bumps, roughness or teeth left. It's been nicely flattened down and turned into a commodity. The kids are not going to be any threat. We've got them tranked out on nothing. There's not going to be any consciousness expansion or revolutionary ideas coming out of most of today's music. It contrasts that with Sly and the Family Stone. That shit was live wire.
Yeah, I think, you know, we need to get back to some of the punk ethos and the DIY shit, and, you know, just stop this, like, this train of just, you know, like we both said, it's spoon-fed. It's just that there's much more creativity out there that, you know, that I'll get on the computer and I search it. I want it. You know, something that's going to be different, that makes my ears prick up.
It's there though, isn't it? If you dig.
Yeah, it is. It is. You've got to dig, just like you would dig on a Saturday morning at a record shop. You know, I would be in there for 4 or 5 hours and I'd find that one golden nugget. And even though they'd look at me and go, fucking hell, Daz, you've been here for 4 fucking hours and you leave with 1/12. Like, yeah.
I'd call that discernment and fine taste, mate. You know, you're not satisfied unless it really reaches that quality. I want that A1 shit here, you know, the magical shit. Otherwise, what's the point?
Yeah. Are you, Matt, are you someone that can listen to a track within 50, like less than a minute, and go yes or no?
I'm a bit more brutal than that, to be honest. Most I tell within like the first 3 or 4 seconds. Like, yeah, I might make mistakes sometimes, but, you know, most stuff is so generic. As soon as I can hear from the sonic, it's something I've heard before. I mean, to be honest, as soon as I hear a 4 on the floor kick drum, my interest meter goes right down. And unless something really grabs me in the next couple of seconds, I'm probably not going to even listen to the rest of it. It's harsh, but one's got to find some way of navigating the landscape. And because the landscape is so brutally immense and crushing, you have to be brutal in your response to it. I say that with all love.
You know, I want to quickly talk about Ninja Tune, because I couldn't have you on without talking about Ninja Tune. Obviously, you started it to put out your own stuff. What do you look for in an artist to sign, you know, for the label?
I'm going to partly sidestep that by saying that John and I have not been particularly involved in Ninja Tune for quite some years, right? We got on this really amazing guy, Peter Quick, And the success of Ninja Tunes mainly down to Pete's incredible hard work and talent and charm and good vibes, basically. We have a really good staff who are a tribe of music lovers. I think that's why they're working with us rather than probably at more lucrative jobs elsewhere. And so those are all our antennae that we find stuff through. I can really only talk about my own taste in music. I mean, from time to time, I'll go and hear something. I'll go to my colleagues and I'll say, my ninjas, and I'll say, I think we've got to have this. We've got to have this. One of those bands was Hiatus Coyote, who I saw at Glastonbury about 8 or 9 years ago. And I went and bought their vinyl and chatted to them, which I think was the first vinyl I bought for many years. But I thought that they blew my mind as something really different in terms of live electronic. And then it took about 7 years, but we did actually sign them via Brainfeeder later on, but not through my influence. But that, you know, when I hear something different I haven't heard before, I get excited, and that's it. And you know, George Riley, someone else that I heard at Glastonbury, had to break off what I was doing and go and check her out, and really tickled me as well. You know, to be dead real, right? As far as Ninja goes, we don't tend to sign people who are just coming from nowhere anymore. We sign artists who've already got a following. And it's a bit like, if no one else cares, why would we? You have to be able to show now you can generate some heat yourself. And in a way, people don't understand, but, you know, labels don't break artists, not independent labels like Ninja Tune. We support and amplify heat, which the artist has generated through their own drive and artistry. You don't generate heat from nothing, right? So I hate social media. We all have a love-hate relationship. This podcast is a form of social media. So we're in that funny ambivalent relationship, aren't we? But you know, I get jazzed when I hear about someone like Salt, who took an alternative approach, decide not to do any social media and just concentrate on making brilliant music and spreading by word of mouth. They did it successfully. And it's hard, you know, this thing about like 100,000 new tracks a day on Spotify, or I think it is now. It's a bit of a poser, that one, isn't it?
Yeah.
So sorry, I've got to slightly dodge that one. I mean, Ninja, we've got a good A&R team, right? We've signed Glass Beams recently. That was a great signing. Barry Can't Swim has really blown up quite immensely. Great signing by the team there. Bicep, particular favourites of mine. I like their sound a lot. That was a great sign. So the Ninja nose still seems to be functioning pretty well in sniffing out the quality that we want.
And it's all different too. You know, that's what I love about the label. You can't really, I mean, the only thing I can say is like it's all quality. You can't really pigeonhole Ninja Tune apart from going, you know, I buy a lot of music, but I make sure, you know, what I buy is quality over quantity. You know, that's another shoved in your mouth. You've got to
buy. We all got our ideas about what personal taste and what is quality, you know. But it's good to have to just be discerning, even if your definition of what's discernment and quality is your own. I mean, Black Country New Road are a band I'm delighted to have on the label. They particularly wanted to sign to Ninja Tune, which, as they're a kind of indie band, it was not an obvious thing, but actually they're perfect, and I really like them. And they have the artistry is the most interesting word in what we're looking for. Artistry is not just about making good art or music, right? That's sort of the easy part. Bit controversial statement here, but I would put it that where we're saying artistry is the business of being an artist. And that means being an interesting, authentic character that people care about. That is as important as making great art. And it's, self-promotion perhaps is not particularly attractive or interesting art form, but artistry is interesting.
100%. Now, my last question for you, you said you're going to be working with Alex and Youth. Any Coldcut album in the works?
No comment on Coldcut, but I've got other stuff going on. I was just in India, did a bunch of tracks with some local Rajasthani artists mixing beats and Rajasthan traditional music. And those guys, they were able to jump on a beat and respond to it. I was quite tickled by that. And what else have we got coming up? I'm just doing different collaborations, really. I was hanging out with Andy Barlow from Lamb, Lamb. Mm-hmm. He's one of my Goa mates. So we got together, and he's a great operator, that guy, and great musician. And with him on his own sort of Ableton keyboard-based instrument, because he can actually play keyboards, and me on jam, and we listened to each other. That was pretty good. So hopefully we're going to slurp out a few. Sorry, I hope I'm not spitting all over the lens. Excuse me. We're going to be slurping out a few experimental bits on ahead of our time. John does his radio shows, which he lovingly crafts, and they're like fantastic selections of quality music. So it's never been perhaps for the mainstream. It's for a niche audience. We're still putting stuff out there. So yeah, check it out. Keep an open mind. Check out the app. That's actually my creation I'm sort of most proud of, really. I don't make tracks anymore. I make sets for jam. A set is an interactive track where you and I collaborate to make a piece of music together. I put together the parts, I give you the instrument, you interpret it however you want to do 1001 in the remix is never finished. To me, that's exciting.
It sounds exciting, to be able to take pieces and create art. Matt, it's been an absolute pleasure to...
Thanks, Daz. Thanks for having me.
And as you said earlier, the old, you shouldn't meet your heroes, but you are one of my heroes. I've loved what you and Jonathan have done, pretty much from day one. You make art, and, it just makes my ears sit up and take notice. So, so thankful that you have taken an hour of your day to have a chat with me.
Well, it was worth it just to check out your selection of trainers there, mate. That's pretty, serious. And you've got your setup on the tabletop there. So you obviously like making your own, getting into the sound and doing stuff yourself. So bless you. And thanks to all your listeners and fans and everyone who's interested and supports Ninja Tune and what we're doing. We might not be the majority, but we're an interesting minority of lifted music freaks. Bless.
Thank you. I want to thank everyone for listening. Please like, subscribe, put your notifications on. But as I always say at the end of every episode, please put your earbuds on. Go out and find these different artists. There's amazing musicians out there that need to be heard. And always please take care of one another, stay safe, and we'll see you later.
Peace.